the Automobile Association. Layton, good morning to you and welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good morning. Appreciate being with you.
Yes, Layton, we've heard the Minerals and Energy Minister, Gwede Mantashe, talking about various ways to help alleviate the high fuel prices. Now, one issue that has always been a sticky point, a major talking point, are the levies and the taxes that are built into the price of petrol at the pump. And just looking at the statement that has come through from the Minerals and Energy Minister, looking at creative ways to try and minimize fuel price hikes, Layton.
Yeah, I mean, the levies is a very interesting and very tricky discussion. The one problem, of course, is that the general fuel levy, which is currently pegged at R3.93 a litre, generates around 90 billion rand a year to the fiscus. It's the fourth biggest tax that government collects, and it's certainly an easy tax for them to collect, and it's it generates a lot of funds for government. To simply do away with that levy, that tax, raises the question of where you then source that amount of money to replace it from. Do you increase other taxes, and is that the solution? It's a question of maybe, robbing Peter to pay Paul, but at the end of the day, you're still stuck with a situation where people may have to pay taxes in other forms. So, is it a workable solution? Is it something that can happen? Would government be happy not having that amount of revenue, over a period of time, maybe suspending it for 6 months or 8 months or even a year? Is that a viable solution for them? Could they do without it? Our experience in looking at governments around the world is that once government has a tax of this nature, they're very loath to want to give it up because that just represents a lot of money coming into them. So I think that the issue around the issue around levies and the broader issue around the petrol price itself and the makeup of that petrol price is not something that can be decided immediately. It is something that needs to be discussed as a matter of urgency, which is exactly why we think that fuel review that we called for, that is now beginning to get off the ground, starts doing its work and deliberates and gets done as soon as possible.
Yes, and obviously, we are held ransom with what is taking place globally, global events, what is taking place or what is taking place between Russia and Ukraine, and there isn't much we can do as far as the international oil price is concerned. But I think the key issue here is looking at where we are and looking at the South African economy. And as you mentioned, 90 billion, and there's a huge amount of contribution to the fiscus that comes through by way of fuel levies, in terms of trying to find a balance. And I think this is, Layton, this is where this is going to be a major challenge for the government. If you're going to sacrifice things like fuel levies or a portion of the fuel levies, how are you going to make up for it?
Well, exactly. And the thing is that it is such a vital tax for government that an alternative must be found if they need to continue with that revenue stream. We obviously are of the opinion that one of the levies we should be looking for or looking at is the Road Accident Fund levy. The RAF as an institution is being poorly managed. It's in severe debt. And, perhaps alleviating pressure may come in the form of reinvestigating how the RAF operates with a view to actually ensuring that people get more value from that institution in terms of the way it operates. Is that the way forward? I don't know. But it's certainly, for us, part of the discussion that needs to be held around this review of the fuel pricing model.
Yes. Now, just looking at a comment that had to come through as well, where the Energy Department says that South Africans may need to rethink or possibly even ration their fuel as a result of what is taking place globally with the global events between Russia and Ukraine. And would that be an option, where people should start using less fuel, or find some ways, some creative ways of trying to minimize fuel consumption?
I think we're conflating two issues. The one is the price of fuel, which is obviously very concerning. The other is the supply of fuel. Now, even the department acknowledges, and when they did this, when they mentioned this rationing, that it's not something that we are close to or that we should be, worrying about at this very moment. I don't know what the supply looks like. Our understanding as the AA is that the supply of fuel is still steady and reliable, so there is no need to panic. Obviously, if you're going to be rationing fuel, the question is how you police that. Limiting people to 50 liters at one fuel station is one of the things that was mentioned. But the question then gets asked, well, if I put 50 liters in here and go down the stretch, I can put 50 liters in there as well. And I can buy an additional 50 liters for the generator I have at home. Rationing is a very dangerous thing to start in the sense of, what do people do in emergencies? That's the first thing. And the second thing is, in a country like South Africa where electricity supply is unreliable, how do you ration people who need fuel for electricity for their generators? So, I don't think we're at that point just yet. Rationing, in our view, is a very, very tricky way of dealing with fuel supply. But like I said, and what the department also said, we're not at that stage where we have to start debating around fuel supply just yet. I'm not sure that we will, necessarily have that discussion in the near future. But if it does arise, I think we need to tackle it then. Rationing, in our view, is not the way to go.
Definitely. But I suppose, one of the key issues here, Layton, is, and this has been the major talking point, as to where fuel prices are going to end up eventually. And, we know already we're talking about, April as well. We can expect further hikes as well. And this is something that, the consumer motorists cannot afford at this point in time. And at some point in time, the bubble is going to burst, Layton.
Yeah, it's a tough thing. I mean, because of the two main factors that influence the fuel price, the Rand-US dollar exchange rate and international oil prices, both of those are very volatile. And, to determine what each of those is going to do in a week's time is near impossible. So to determine what's going to happen in a month's time is even more impossible. It's very speculative and, quite frankly, quite dangerous to say that we're going to end up 40 or 50 or 60 Rand a litre in 3 or 4 months' time, because nobody knows for sure that is where the fuel price is headed. We saw, for instance, in 2020, fuel was pegged at a specific level, and within 3 months, it was incredibly low, and that was as a result of COVID. So we can't say with any certainty what is going to happen to the fuel price in a month's time, let alone in 2 or 3 months' time. And we wouldn't even put a number on that because it would be dangerous for us to do that and very speculative. I think what people have to do is to understand how the fuel price is made up. They have to understand what the fuel price is going into the new months. So we know now that we're looking at a significant increase of around 2 Rand. People need to budget around that figure, I would say, because that's at least something that's a stake in the ground. And then wait and see how the thing unfolds in April going into May and, budget accordingly for that. Obviously, we would tell people if you are able to budget with a little bit of fat in that fuel budget, because you don't know what's going to happen in the months ahead. But at least you've got a month to budget and to rebudget for whatever month is coming up. I don't know what the fuel price is going to do. I get asked this question all the time. It's speculative. It's dangerous. We won't do it. We need to look at what those figures tell us on a daily basis.
And just finally, Layton, what advice would you give motorists?
As I said, understand the fuel price, budget accordingly. Make sure your car is in a good working condition, that your tires are inflated properly, that they're aligned and they're balanced correctly, that the engine is serviced and running optimally and using the right amount of fuel. Understand that if you tow a vehicle or you use things like an air conditioner, you're going to be using more fuel. Consider alternatives like public transport where it is available, reliable, affordable, safe for you to do that, more affordable than using your own vehicle. If you are going to be considering carpooling, discuss it with your insurer. That is a way of managing fuel costs better. But yes, I mean, use your car judiciously. If you don't need to use your vehicle, then walk or use a bicycle if you are able to, and you can do that. I know it's not going to work for everybody, but plan ahead, I think, is probably the best advice we can give.
Well, Layton, thank you very much for that. And as always, for your time with us here on Salam Media, all the best to you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Automobile Association spokesperson Layton Beard with us this morning. The time is just gone 8:52. We come back. We'll be joined in Piazza at 8:20.